Let's get started with the story in Jacksonville.
We turn now to the racially motivated shooting in Jacksonville, Florida. A 21-year-old white man accused of killing 3 with an AR-15 style rifle. ABC's Alex Perche in Jacksonville tonight.
Tonight, new details in that racially motivated shooting at a Dollar General that left 3 black people dead.
We have discovered new facts regarding the shooter's movements and whereabouts hours and minutes before he committed his acts of senseless violence at Dollar General.
Late today, law enforcement sharing this video they say shows the suspect, 21-year-old Ryan Christopher Palmetter, first entering a Family Dollar store about a mile away.
Not only did the shooter park at the Family Dollar, he also went inside the store and bought some items.
He then stopped at Edward Waters University, a historically black university down the street. This video being used in the investigation showing the suspect donning a tactical vest and blue latex gloves. Students flagging down a security guard.
What's going through your mind?
That there's something wrong. I was not able to see a weapon at that time. However, I did see what appeared to be a tactical vest, a mask, along with a hat covering his head at that time.
Authorities say the suspect hopped a curve and fled, driving to this Dollar General store where he began an 11-minute rampage. Surveillance video shows the shooter, without warning, firing 11 rounds into 52-year-old Angela Michelle Carr's Kia, killing her. He then...
I just want to remind everyone, this is in broad daylight. This is where we're at now in this country. In broad daylight, this happened.
Walks into the store armed with a handgun and an AR-15 style rifle that authorities say he bought legally. The suspect shooting 19-year-old employee AJ Laguerre Jr., multiple witnesses fleeing out the back of the store, and then later, 29-year-old Gerald Gallion enters. The shooter killing him, missing his girlfriend. And 10 minutes into this heinous act, he sends a text.
The suspect texts his father and says, "Use a screwdriver to get into my room." The father enters the room and finds a last will and testament of the suspect along with a suicide note on his laptop.
ABC News obtaining this distressed 911 call his father made to police.
He left in his car a couple of hours ago.
His father stating that his son had been suicidal before and was receiving psychiatric help, but had stopped taking medication.
So I just want to pause right there for a second. Why does it seem like a lot of times the mass shooters tend to live with the parents, but the parents tend to just seem to be aloof? Is that something that you guys have ever noticed? I remember that in reference to Columbine, Sandy Hook, now this particular situation in Jacksonville. Why does it seem like I don't know. I'm not a parent. But one thing that is troubling what he said here is that he did have a mental illness. He was prescribed medication for his illness, but he had stopped taking the medication. So the parent knew that. And to me, that's a red flag. Just something I tend to notice.
All right. And does your son go anywhere that you know of? Is there like common places he goes to?
No, he doesn't go anywhere.
By that time, the rampage was already over, the shooter taking his own life as officers arrived on the scene. Investigators finding writings on the gunman, which they say contained racist and hateful ideology, as well as painted swastikas on one of the firearms.
Plainly put, this shooting was racially motivated and he hated black people.
The FBI opening domestic terror and federal hate crime investigations, saying there's also evidence that the suspect harbored anti-LGBTQ+ and anti-Semitic grievances. The latest federal data shows a 12% increase in hate crime incidents. At a vigil Sunday, Governor Ron DeSantis, who signed laws to restrict how race is taught in Florida public schools, was booed.
We're going to pause here for just a second because I have another clip I'm going to show you too, but something that I just want to jump in and say, this is really interesting considering the fact that it was recently that Ron DeSantis said that they don't have these crime issues in Florida. When he was questioned about crime, you know, he's running for president, obviously, he said, we don't have this issue in Florida because we've implemented all these different rules and yada, yada. We have it under control. And then this happened. And one thing I did notice, the look on Ron DeSantis's face, it was not a proud look. It almost looked somewhat ashamed because of what has happened. Because now this is the thing, like I've watched him for the past couple of months point to other states and say, or other cities as well, and say, oh my God, crime is crazy in California. Crime is crazy over there in Georgia. We don't have these issues in Florida. Yes, this can happen anywhere. Anywhere. Let's continue. He was booed.
The governor condemning the shooting.
We are not going to let people be targeted based on their race.
President Biden asked about the shooting just before meeting with Dr. King's family members and other civil rights leaders at the White House.
We can't let hate prevail.
Tonight, family members of the victims praying that their loved ones spark change.
I hope that this really does spark something for people to take a stand.
David, tonight, the sheriff's department says the shooter worked at a Dollar Tree from October of 2021 to July of 2022, and he had no prior criminal history. David?
Thinking of those families tonight. Alex Brachet, thank you.
Okay, so Ron DeSantis has not been well received. At least initially, he was not well received by the residents, obviously. I want to go ahead and show you part of that speech that he started to give here, where even one of the city councilors actually stepped forward to say something as well. You know, sometimes there is this bit of humility. Sometimes you do have to have a little bit of humility, and you do have to take a step back, because I'm just going to go ahead and say this. A lot of the rhetoric that Ron DeSantis has had in reference to woke this, woke that, all of that message that he has continued to say, although I know they didn't talk about that during the GOP debates, but he continued for a while to preach that anti-woke like rhetoric and message to people. And then there was the issue with CRT in the schools in Florida. And so the message that was sent across was obviously that we want to have a message and a standard in the state of Florida where everyone is kind of, you know, just there. Like, we don't really want to focus on race. We don't really want to focus on gender, all those kinds of things. The problem is the way that it was said, some of the things that were said, and the way people took it, it made people feel, particularly Black people, I can't speak for all the other groups, but it made particularly Black people feel as though he's really trying to erase who we are as a people. And so this is why they're booing Ron DeSantis after the shooting happening. No, did Ron DeSantis take the gun and put it in the shooter's hand? No, he did not. But what they're arguing is that now you have to come down to a Black community and you have to stand in front of all these Black people. And what are you going to say? The number of times that you've said that, no, race is not an issue. We're not going to focus on people's race. But sometimes you have to. And this is what people have to really get. Sometimes you have to. In this particular situation, for Ron DeSantis as the governor, yes, this was a hate crime. Yes, this was racially motivated. You cannot just sit there and pretend like race had nothing to do with it. Guess what, folks? Sometimes people are just racist. Sometimes race does have something to do with it. But when you have this message and you have this perception that you can just be colorblind, which people aren't colorblind, by the way, and just pretend that race is not an issue, then what do you do when you have a racial issue happen? So watch this.
We're going to ask the governor if he would come now and bring remarks.
Well, thank you for doing this. I want to just say to the councilwoman, I got you. Don't worry about it. We've already been looking to identify funds to be able to help, one, make sure there's adequate security for Edward Waters College. We are not going to allow these institutions to be targeted by people.
You see this? So you got to remember the college that he went to, that was a historically Black college. So it's just, what do you do? This is one of those moments where you can't say to those kids at that campus, we're not going to focus on race. We're not going to talk about, you can't do that now. You can't do it. Now you have to talk about it. And this is why you can't tell people or continue to preach this message. We don't really need to focus on it. We don't really need to think about that. No, it is an issue. It is an issue. Let's continue. So you see he was interrupted. They were booing him in the background.
Okay, listen, y'all. Let me tell you, we finna put parties aside. Cause it ain't about parties today. A bullet don't know a party. So don't get me started. Okay, Jacoby is nice, but Ann is not. Now, if the governor wanted to come here and he bringing gifts to my community, y'all know I'm taking the gifts because we've been through enough already, and I don't want to go through no more. Now, y'all just be quiet just a minute and let the governor say what he gonna say, and we gonna get this party started. You hear me? Okay, let's do it.
So we have already identified funds from the state of Florida. I've been in touch with Dr. Faison. We're going to be announcing some stuff tomorrow morning, which I think will help not only with security, but also an attempt to help these families. The fact of the matter is, you had a major league scumbag come from Clay County up here, and what he did is totally unacceptable in the state of Florida. We are not going to let people be targeted based on their race. We are going to stand up and we are going to do what we need to do to make sure that evil does not triumph in the state of Florida. And that means we are going to work with Edward Waters so that they have whatever security they need. In Florida, we've already given a lot of money to Jewish day schools because they've been targeted with anti-Semitism. Well, let me tell you this. You are not going to target HBCUs in the state of Florida and get away with it. We're going to hold you accountable. We're not going to let it happen. And we thank what everybody's done, TK, the mayor, and just know that the state of Florida stands with the community. Help is on the way. God bless you all.
You see, he had to acknowledge that what was done was racist. He had to acknowledge it. How could you not? Had to. This is the complete opposite of the message that he's been sending in Florida. Now, I think it's nice that they want to amp up security. If they want to put more security around that college campus, I think that's cool. That's great for the students because one of the security guards was like, by the time he saw what happened, it was too late. That's nice, but that don't solve the problem. You have to get to the root cause of the problem. Why would someone feel compelled to do that in the first place? Why would someone feel that it's okay to have that much hatred and let it get to the point where they feel like they can just go eliminate the people that they despise based on the color of their skin? When you gonna solve that problem though, Ron? Because you see, when you make comments and say, we're not going to make people feel guilty or ashamed because they're white, so we're going to be careful about what we teach in these schools, particularly when it comes to CRT. When you make those statements, Ron DeSantis, you basically were given the okay to white people in your state that you would protect them. You were not giving that street cred or that credence to Black people in your state that you would protect them. You guys see the problem? So people are blaming Ron DeSantis because of the rhetoric that he's had all along. Like, come on, people. It's one thing to say, I disagree with some of the elements of CRT, and here's why. It's another thing to sit up there and say, I'm not going to have white students feel ashamed. And give me a break, Ron. I saw part of Roots when I was in middle school, Ron. And there were a lot of white kids in my class, okay? I saw part in middle school. We watched Brown versus Board of Education. We saw all of it. We saw the black and white video footage, the documentaries of black people being hosed down during the civil rights movement, of the police sticking dogs on black people, beating black people. We saw that in school. And now you want to turn it back. You want to make it so that people don't feel ashamed. They don't feel guilty. So you don't want everybody to see the full side of history. Why say bump that? To the point where you want to gloss over slavery? You want the schools to be okay to teach that just so white people in Florida don't feel guilty. So you can put up as many security officers as you want at that campus. That does not solve the root cause of the problem. You need to ask yourself why there's so much hate in the first damn place. Now, Fox News, of course, they're giving cred here to Ron DeSantis for walking away from the campaign trail, which he's taking a break from the campaign trail, not getting rid of a campaign, but walking away from the presidential campaign trail. And he's doing that so that he can focus on that particular issue that just happened in Jacksonville and the hurricane that's hitting Florida right now. So there's a lot going on. But listen to how they spin this. And this is what I want you to pay attention to. Remember, Fox News is all in for DeSantis. Listen to this.
It was the right thing to do. It was empathetic. He started immediately on what he could do when it came to funds. And that local leader stepped up. And what I noticed, and this is what I think has to be discussed, is that when she said there's no politics today, right? There's no parties. That's when you heard more applause. It was a few voices that were drowning out. And then when people were, told to let's back up a little bit, they appreciated that. What's your take?
That interestingly, both of those examples of leadership sort of represented the level that they represent. So we had the federal level coming in steady and strong like an oak, saying, this is the funding that I'm going to give. My deepest condolences. My heart breaks with you. And then the local councilwoman who says, hold on, guys. A bullet knows no party. Let's let this governor speak. Let's let him lead. I really appreciated that level of connection that we saw. And especially when he went on to talk about when he was addressing his constituents about the impending storm and saying so clearly, so down to earth, you don't need to leave the state. The state, we've got you here. You just need to get to higher ground. And this is what you need. He suspended his campaign to engage and connect with local and state constituents because he, at his heart, is a servant, because he understands he's a steward of the people. And it's such a stark contrast with so many others, including our current commander in chief, who at all times I feel is reading a script or doing what he's told to do. And the actual connection is non-existent.
Oh, it's called doing your job. As governor, that is his job. When there is a tragedy, if there is a mass shooting, there's a big storm that's coming up. As governor of that state, it's part of your job to go and tend to the people of your state. It's just interesting to me how they tried to spin this on Fox News and make it seem like Ron DeSantis is some type of a saint. But remember, the reason why I wanted to play this clip is because I wanted to remind you where Fox News is going. Remember, it was reported after Tucker Carlson was removed from Fox News, it was reported that Rupert Murdoch had already decided that Fox News was going to go for Ron DeSantis this time around, not Donald Trump, because the donors want Ron DeSantis. And typically, this is how it works. Typically, the candidate that has the most money, they're typically the ones that become the nominee. That's usually how it works. I don't know if that's going to work this time, though, because Trump is still way ahead of Ron DeSantis in the polls, and the GOP does not have super delegates like the Democratic Party. But I wanted to point this out to you because, again, look at how it's titled. DeSantis speaks in Jacksonville despite hecklers. You see this? They make it seem like he's doing some great feat. He's doing his job. As a governor, that is what you are supposed to do. But they're going to try to find ways to praise him as much as possible because that's who they're trying to sell to you as the GOP nominee.